If you have spent more than just 5 minutes in the wellness space, you have likely seen the cycle syncing content out there. A lot of times it's got those beautiful graphics with the color coded wheel, the health influencer telling you that during your luteal phase, you should be eating the roasted root veggies, doing gentle stretching and walking, and basically becoming one with a wool blanket. And maybe you've looked at that and you've thought, okay, that sounds lovely. And I would love to do that, but I have to get the kids out the door for school. I've got a client right after that. Forget all of the housework and the laundry that needs to be done. And not to mention the workout you've been trying to complete for the last 4 days straight, thinking you do not have time to slow down and be in your luteal phase. Or maybe you thought, wait, is this why I feel so wrecked the week before my period? Is this why some days I feel like I could take on the world? I could deadlift at least 1 time my body weight. And some days walking up the stairs feels like it was the hardest workout you've done in weeks. If either of those landed, you're in exactly the right place. Welcome back to the Strong Her Way. Do you find yourself constantly grabbing convenience food or hitting the drive-thru because of your busy schedule? Are you tired of your clothes not fitting and wish you felt more like yourself again? Does the word diet make you cringe because of past failed attempts that left you hungry and deprived? I'm Alisha, a wife, mom, fitness, nutrition, and lifestyle coach for women. After years of dieting, losing, and regaining the same weight, I realized I needed a new approach. I was burnt out from trying to be everything to everyone and chasing a number on the scale. To truly show up as the wife and mom I wanted to be and to finally find freedom in my health meant redefining my relationship to food, exercise, my body, and most importantly, to myself. I discovered the power of brain-based nutrition, fitness, habits, and routines to create a healthy lifestyle without restriction or deprivation. And now I'm excited to share everything I've learned with you. If you're ready to follow a simple brain-based nutrition and fitness plan built on habits and routines designed for busy moms and women, you're in the right place. Let's do this together. I'm Alisha Carlson, your host, your coach, and today your guide through one of the most talked about and genuinely feels a little bit controversial from time to time topics in fitness right now, and that is cycle syncing, specifically what it looks like or doesn't look like when your cycle is doing something wildly unpredictable, which, if you're in your late phase, early to mid phase, or even early 50s, might already be your reality. Here's what we're doing today. We're going to look at the actual research. We're going to get honest about what the science does and doesn't support. We're going to talk about the perimenopausal twist most cycle syncing content is completely ignoring right now. And we're going to land somewhere that I think is actually maybe more useful than the perfect color coded graphics, which is really learning to train with our body instead of fighting against it. So let's name what's actually happening for a lot of women who come to work with me. Your body feels completely inconsistent. One week, you're crushing your workouts, feeling strong, sleeping great, showing up like the rock star human being that you are. The next week, you're exhausted. Your body feels inflamed and achy, and emotionally, you're a little bit all over the place. And your performance in the gym and your workouts has fallen off of the face of a cliff. And nobody even had the audacity to tell you that this was going to. You feel frustrated, maybe even a little bit embarrassed, like you know what you're capable of. You've done hard things, you've been able to do it before, but you can't figure out why your body feels like it has its own agenda all of a sudden. And this is what I really want to dig into because you know we're all about really diving in and getting in under the surface is that we as women have been sold this idea that being consistent means it's identical. It looks the same from day to day, the same amount of effort, the same output, the same performance every single day. And when your body doesn't cooperate with that story, you start to feel like you're inconsistent, you're undisciplined, or worse yet, that there's something wrong and broken inside of you. I want to offer a new perspective. What if none of that is true? What if the inconsistency is just data? What if your body is actually trying to tell you something and you just never were really taught to tune in and listen? What it is about is paying attention to your body's signs and signals and then learning to respond and switch it up as necessary accordingly. And in perimenopause, when some of those symptoms start to get a little bit louder, a little bit weirder, a little bit harder to predict, the skill of learning to listen to your body and then act accordingly becomes even more valuable and more necessary. Now, before we go any further, I do want to give you an honest caveat. Most wellness content skip. The research on cycle syncing is real and also genuinely mixed. So, we're going to do something radical today, and we're going to look at the pros and the cons both at the same time. So, here is where I land on this personally. I've been coaching women, specifically women in kind of that mid 30s and beyond chapter, long enough to see some patterns start to emerge. And I've sat with the clients who are white knuckling their way through workouts that they're supposed to be doing, feeling like their body was somehow betraying them to know that something was off in how they were approaching their fitness. I also know the frustration that comes with just wanting a clear, simple answer. Just tell me what to do. And discovering that the answer is actually maybe a little bit more nuanced than these simple, neat little charts that we have grown up seeing. So, what I want to give you today isn't necessarily just a protocol. I want you to think of it more as a framework, and it's rooted in research, the clinical reality of perimenopause, and the practical truth of what actually helps real women build sustainable fitness habits, not just survive their cycle until the next time amp flow shows up. And speaking of frameworks, I want to mention something quickly. I have a brand new resource for you called the Strong Her Way Foundation. It's a micro course. It's just $27, and it really gives you the foundational framework for building fitness and nutrition habits that actually last, rooted in identity, not willpower, so that they stick. Everything that we talk about on this podcast, the mindset piece, approaching it sustainably, learning that self, it's all in there. It's in there in a way that's structured and actionable. I'll give you the link at the end, but I just want you to kind of be thinking about that for now, because what I'm about to share today is going to make a whole lot more sense when you have that foundation underneath it. Okay, let's dive into the science for just a sec. All right, let's talk about what cycle syncing actually is and what the research says about whether it works or not. Your cycle has four phases. There's the menstrual, follicular, ovulatory, and luteal. Each one is driven by different hormonal patterns, primarily estrogen and progesterone. And those hormones don't just affect your mood and your period, they affect your energy, your recovery, your metabolism, your sleep, and yes, even your performance in your workouts. Here's what the research does show, and it's pretty interesting. Meta analysis looking at performance across the menstrual cycle, women tended to perform slightly better during the follicular phase. So that's the first half of your cycle when estrogen is rising, in comparison to the luteal phase when progesterone tends to be dominant. We're talking about small differences here, but real differences in strength, power, and endurance. Some research also suggests that your neuromuscular performance, that's your ability to generate force and move explosively, tends to peak right around ovulation. So that's somewhere kind of in the middle of your cycle. It makes sense hormonally. Estrogen supports muscle contractility. It's also anti inflammatory. So when estrogen is high, your muscles tend to respond better, recover faster, and just in general feel like everything's kind of cooperating and moving a little bit better together. In the luteal phase, so this is the second half of your cycle, the week or two before your period, progesterone starts to rise and estrogen drops. And some studies have shown that muscle damage and soreness can be slightly higher in this phase, which suggests that recovery might take a little bit longer. So, is there something to this? Yes, there is. And this is a real but. There are also some well designed studies that really found no significant difference in strength performance across cycle phases in regularly training women. One study looking specifically at resistance trained women found that when you actually control for variables like training experience and individual variation, the cycle phase effect pretty much disappears. So, what does that mean? It means the research is real and the research is mixed, which is not a cop out. It's actually useful information. And really and truly, that's what we find a lot of times in every area, which is why you'll see one day that, this is being promoted to help women in perimenopause or to help you reach XYZ goal. And then the next day, you see something that's completely contradictory. So here's my honest take. The effect of your cycle on performance is probably real for most women, but the magnitude can vary enormously depending on who you are and just your unique physiology, your fitness level, your stress load, your sleep, your nutrition. All of those things influence how much your cycle affects your training. For some women, it's significant and they really notice big differences. For others, it tends to be barely noticeable at all. And that right there is really why I don't love like a one size fits all cycle syncing protocol. Your body is not the average research study, it's yours. And there really is something to looking at things through the N of one being you, right? So it's like we can look at all the information, whether it's on cycle syncing or protein or sleep needs. But at the end of the day, we don't know how it's going to impact you uniquely. And that's where there's always going to be a little bit of trial and error that comes into play. Now, here is where it gets really interesting and where most cycle syncing content completely drops the ball. Most everything you'll read or hear about cycle syncing assumes that you have a predictable, regular 28-day cycle. And if you're in perimenopause, that might feel like one big crazy joke. Perimenopause, which can start anywhere from your late 30s to your mid 50s, is designed or is defined essentially by hormonal fluctuation. Not a gradual, graceful decline, but what feels like actual hormonal chaos. Estrogen can surge higher than it ever did before crashing. Progesterone drops first, and most dramatically, cycles can be 21 days, 45 days, or completely skipped. You might have a luteal phase that lasts for 4 days, or maybe the full 2 weeks. So when someone tells you to periodize your training around your cycle in perimenopause, advice kind of assumes that you have a cycle that follows a regular period, no pun intended there, but is really predictable. And a lot of us in perimenopause just are not having that experience anymore. So here's what the research does tell us about hormones in perimenopause that's actually actionable. Estrogen plays a massive role in muscle health, stability, and recovery. As estrogen becomes more erratic and eventually declines, you may notice that it's going to take you a little bit longer to recover. More joint aches and pains and stiffness, increased fat storage, especially around the midsection, and a tendency to feel just more fatigued. The same time training intensities used to not bother you. This is real. This has been documented. And none of it means that you can't train hard. It just means that you are going to want to be even more intentional about the training intensities that you're using so that we're training smarter, essentially. Research has shown that strength training is, of course, one of the most protective things a woman can do during perimenopause for her bone density, her muscle mass, metabolic function and health, mood, sleep quality. The answer is not to do less, it's just to be a little bit more strategic about what you're doing. So, what does strategic even look like when we're in perimenopause? It looks like us paying attention, seeing how we feel, maybe in relation to where we are in our cycle, even if our cycle is a little bit irregular. You want to start to notice patterns. Notice when your energy is high and your strength feels there, and really taking that as an opportunity to capitalize. Notice also, though, when your body is asking for more rest and recovery, and then giving it that when it needs it too, without making it mean that something is wrong, that you're lazy, that it's a problem that you need to fix. Remember, it's not a protocol, it's something that we work on practicing day in and day out. Okay, I want to spend a moment here because I think that this is important and because I promised you I'd give you both sides. So there are coaches and researchers who are skeptical of cycle syncing as a prescriptive protocol. And I think some of their critiques are really worth hearing and just kind of paying attention to so that we can ultimately figure out what's going to work best for. So, the main arguments most of the research showing performance differences across cycle phases use small sample sizes. The effect is are often small. Individual variation is massive, and there's a real concern that telling women to dial their training back in their luteal phase really might just give them permission to effectively train 2 weeks out of the month, which for the women I coach is often sometimes a tendency that they're already working against, or they're already trying to navigate how they can just be more consistent with their training. So I hear that research, and I actually do agree with part of it. But here's where I push back on the pushback against cycle syncing. The goal of cycle awareness isn't to give yourself an excuse, it's to give yourself information. And there's a difference between I'm in my luteal phase, so I'm just going to skip the gym, and I'm in my luteal phase. I notice my recovery is slower, so I'm going to keep my strength, but maybe I'm going to swap it finisher for a longer cool down and get into bed a little bit earlier. The one is using your cycle as maybe an excuse or an escape hatch. The other is using it as data to help you make informed, intentional decisions where you're still taking care of yourself, you're partnering with your body, and you're still making consistent strides towards your overall bigger fitness goals. And then there's the other camp, the true believers who will tell you that if you're not eating specific foods and doing specific workouts on specific days based on your cycle, you're basically leaving your health completely on the table. And I want to push back on that one too, because for women in perimenopause whose cycles can be really unpredictable and irregular, rigid cycle syncing protocol can actually create more stress and more anxiety, not less. Right? Especially if we're kind of approaching it with that same diet mentality and turning it into another diet that we're trying to follow. If your cycle is 32 days this month and 19 days next month, trying to eat the right seeds or the right veggies in your follicular phase is not going to save you. It's probably going to just add more stress to a life that you're already maybe feeling a little stressed. So, where exactly does that leave us? With something I think is actually more empowering than either extreme. It's us learning to train intuitively, train consistently, use your cycle when you can track it as a piece of data and not like some hard and fast rules that we need to follow. Okay, so let's get practical because I know some of you are sitting there going, okay, Alisha, you've told me what it's not and you've told me what not to do. Now tell me what to do. So here's the framework that I actually use for myself. It's one that I use with my clients as well. So, one, you want to track before you try to optimize. So, before you try to cycle sync anything, you're going to want to spend a couple of months just collecting some data and just noticing. So, keeping a simple log of your energy, your mood, your strength, and your workouts, what your sleep is, your recovery. Note where you're at in your cycle as well. Now, you can use an app, but you also could just really use a piece of paper and just journal and jot things down. So, what we're looking for, we want to find patterns. Do we consistently feel strong mid cycle? Do you consistently feel more tired or emotionally activated in the week before your period? Well, that's it. All that's telling you is information and data for you to then take and figure out what you want to do and how you want to apply the information that you have. Two, use some phase awareness as permission to adjust intensity and not just permission to quit. Here's the thing I don't want you to take away from this episode that your luteal phase is just a 2 week rest phase because it's not. Strength training can still be appropriate and important in your luteal phase. Cardiovascular work is still appropriate. What might shift though is the intensity and the volume. So instead of like trying to hit a PR, you might just train at maybe like a 6 or a 7 out of 10 instead of a 9.5 or a 10 out of 10. Instead of adding the hit, you might do a little bit of lower intensity, steady state cardio. Instead of training 5 days that week, maybe you scale it back to 3 or 4 with an extra day of active recovery, a mobility session, or just some additional walking. The goal is really to just keep showing up with a little bit more grace and really kind of just checking the ego and leaving that at the door. 3, prioritize recovery in your luteal phase and in perimenopause in general. Research consistently shows that women in perimenopause have longer recovery windows. So, this isn't weakness, it's just a shift in our biology. Becomes really non negotiable. Estrogen fluctuations wreak havoc on sleep architecture, and poor sleep tanks our recovery even more, our performance as well as our mood. So, it kind of ends up being that vicious cycle. Protein intake starts to matter maybe more than ever. Research supports about 1.6 or 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight for muscle preservation, and higher protein intake also supports satiety and blood sugar regulation. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you know that none of that is brand new information. Or you want to learn and just kind of lean into trusting the signals that your body is sending without judgment, without shame, without being harsh. Just remember that your body is not broken when it feels different from week to week or even month to month. Our body is really just always sending us these communication signals. Question is whether or not you're going to slow down enough to listen and whether you're going to take the time to learn what your body is saying, interpret it, interpret the signals, and then act accordingly. Take essentially the next. Feeling tired might mean that you need rest. It might also mean that you need food, you need water, you need to get away from work for a little bit and step outside. Feeling emotionally reactive might be hormonal. It might also mean that you're just stressed and overwhelmed and your body is amplifying that signal. The practice of intuitive training and really just sort of intuitive living is learning the difference of, you know, what is my body saying? What does it need? And then really being able to step in and meet your body where it's at and provide for it what it's asked. So here's the bottom line. You don't have to choose between trusting science and trusting your body. The best version of this isn't cycle syncing as a rigid protocol or just another diet to follow. It's you becoming the most informed, most self-aware athlete of your own life. And that's exactly what we built the Strong Her Way for, and the foundation course is going to help you do. I want to pause on something before we get to your homework because this is a piece that I think maybe matters most. Cycle syncing at its worst is just another framework that positions your body as a problem to be managed, another system, another thing that you can do right or wrong or do perfect enough, another reason to feel like you're failing. At its best, it could be a doorway into something much bigger. It's a beginning of a relationship with your body that's built on curiosity instead of control, and responsiveness instead of rigidity and perfection, and on trusting that your body is not your enemy, even when it doesn't cooperate with you, your goals, or your timelines. The woman who really wins at this, the one who builds sustainable fitness in her 50s and beyond, she's not the one who has the perfect cycle syncing protocol nailed. She's the one who knows herself, who shows up consistently, not perfectly, who's learned to listen to her body without feeling like she's being controlled by it. It really is an identity shift. It's not a plan, it's not a protocol. And the work behind and the work of building that identity, that's what we do together in the podcast, in the coaching container. And that's what you start to do and build in the Her Way Foundation microcourse. Okay, here's your homework for this week. And yes, I'm giving you some action items because that's the kind of coach and friend that I am. This week, I want you to just start a simple cycle log, whether that's in your notes app, whether you download the app, whether you have like a paper journal that you want to keep track of. Every day, just spend a couple minutes jotting down your energy level, how your training felt, where you think you are in your cycle if you don't yet know. You don't have to be exact, but remember, we're just starting to notice, starting to kind of connect with our bodies, get in tune with it, and just start paying attention to the signals that it's sending. That's it. That's week one. So we're just collecting data over time that will become more valuable to you than any perfect protocol that you could follow, because what you're doing is you're collecting your own data and then you're making informed, confident decisions about how to act and how to take care of yourself. And if you want the framework that makes all of this click into place, that's really where that foundations micro course is going to connect your mindset, your movement, your nutrition, and your identity as someone who actually takes care of herself. Exactly what we go through in the Strong Her Way Foundation micro course. $27. It's not a 12-week program. It's not a diet. It really is just this foundational framework, the stuff that makes everything else work. It's you kind of taking what you're learning here on the show, and then you're starting to apply it a little bit deeper, a little bit more to yourself. It's delivered in a way that's actually actionable for real life. You can grab it at thestrongherway.com fit dash and fueled numbers. So we'll just be sure to link that down in the show notes below so that you have the accurate link on that. And if you're someone who wants to go deeper, so maybe you're like, yeah, the course sounds great, and that's a great place for some to start. But if you've been listening for a while, you're really wanting some individualized coaching, someone to actually look at your training, your nutrition, help you decipher what your body is trying to tell you, and then build a plan that is built around you and your life. That is what we do inside the Fit and Fueled program. You can find out more about that by clicking the other link in the show notes below. Listen, I want to say something before I let you go. You're not inconsistent. You are not broken. You are a woman navigating a body that is literally changing in real time in a culture that has never really once taught you how to do that with grace. The fact that you're here showing up for yourself and listening and trying to figure that out, it's not some small thing for you to discount. I want you to recognize how impactful and big of a first step that. All right, I'll see you next week. Take care of yourself until then. And remember, strength isn't just something that you build in the gym, it's something that you build every time you intentionally choose to show up for yourself. Soon. Thanks for hanging out.
Thanks for tuning in to The Strong Her Way. If you're ready to redefine your relationship with food, exercise, and yourself, remember, it's all about building habits and routines that fit into your busy life without restriction or deprivation. I hope today's episode inspired you to take the next step on your journey to a healthier, happier you. Don't forget to follow the show so you never miss an episode. And if you found this helpful, please leave a review and share it with other women who need a little extra encouragement. Together, we can all become stronger. Until next time, stay strong and keep moving forward.